The dawn breaks over the Persian Gulf, not with the warmth of the sun, but with the cold, steel-gray silhouette of the most formidable armada ever assembled in modern history. The waters of the Strait of Hormuz, usually a bustling artery of global commerce, are eerily silent, cleared of all civilian traffic. Breaking this silence is the low, rhythmic thrumming of heavy engines that vibrates through the very water itself. The United States Navy has arrived. Leading this colossal formation is a Nimitz-class aircraft carrier, a floating fortress displacing over 100,000 tons, cutting through the swells with terrifying purpose. Flanking this Leviathan are guided missile cruisers and destroyers, their radar arrays spinning tirelessly, scanning the horizon and the heavens for any sign of hostility. Deep beneath the surface, nuclear-powered attack submarines run silent and deep, hunting for the diesel-electric submersibles of the Iranian Navy. The target is Abu Musa, a strategic island fortress that controls the mouth of the Gulf. On the island, the Iranian defenders are not asleep. They have spent decades turning this rock into a porcupine of anti-access and area denial weaponry. Buried deep within the limestone and concrete are batteries of anti-ship cruise missiles, their guidance systems currently dormant to avoid detection. Thousands of Iranian Marines and Revolutionary Guard Corps personnel man the intricate network of trenches, bunkers, and coastal pillboxes. They know the enemy is coming. The air is thick with humidity and the metallic taste of adrenaline. Every pair of eyes scans the horizon, watching the gray shapes grow larger, transforming from specks into the distinct profiles of American warships. The tension is a physical weight, pressing down on the chest of every soldier on both sides. This is no longer a diplomatic dispute, it is the precipice of total war. Suddenly, the horizon erupts. The silence is shattered by the deafening roar of boosters, igniting as the American destroyers and cruisers unleash a salvo of Tomahawk land attack cruise missiles. Hundreds of these cylinders of death arc into the sky, trailing white smoke turning south towards the island. Simultaneously, the flight deck of the carrier becomes a hive of controlled chaos. Steam catapults slam forward, launching F-18 Super Hornets and F-35 Lightning fighters into the air every 30 seconds. The sky fills with the thunder of afterburners. The initial bombardment hits Abu Musa with the force of a tectonic event. The dawn sky is lit up by the secondary explosions of Iranian radar sites and command bunkers being pulverized by precision munitions. Concrete shatters, and sand is thrown hundreds of feet into the air. The Iranian response is immediate and ferocious. Hidden missile hatches slide open, and shore-based anti-ship missiles scream out towards the American fleet. The Phalanx close-in weapon systems on the U.S. ships spin up with a buzzsaw whine, spewing tungsten rounds to intercept the incoming threats. The air between the fleet and the island becomes a chaotic web of tracers, missile trails, and flak. It is a symphony of destruction, a contest of technology and will. The American aircraft dive through the curtain of anti-aircraft fire, dropping laser-guided bombs on the hardened artillery positions that overlook the beaches. The ground shakes rhythmically, a drumbeat of high explosives, preparing the way for the invasion force. As the smoke from the bombardment begins to drift across the water, the second phase of the operation commences. The horizon behind the warships darkens with the approach of the amphibious assault group. The sea churns white as hundreds of landing craft air cushions, hovercraft, and amphibious assault vehicles surge forward. They carry the tip of the spear, 50,000 United States Marines. This is the largest amphibious landing since the mid-20th century. The roar of the hovercraft engines drowns out even the crashing waves. Inside the troop transports, young Marines grip their rifles, their faces masks of grim determination, swaying with the motion of the sea. As the first wave hits the beach, the sand erupts in geysers of water and shrapnel. The surviving Iranian coastal defenders open fire with everything they have remaining. Heavy machine gun fire rakes the shoreline, sparking off the armor of the amphibious vehicles. Mortar rounds walk up and down the beachhead, throwing bodies and equipment into the air. The ramp doors drop, and the Marines charge out into the teeth of the enemy fire. It is a scene of raw, visceral violence. Men fall, but the line moves forward. The sheer weight of numbers and firepower begins to tell. Marine engineers rush forward under fire to blow gaps in the wire obstacles and minefields, clearing a path for the M1A2 Abrams tanks coming ashore on the second wave. The beach becomes a chaotic mix of shouting men, roaring engines, and the ceaseless crack and thump of weapons fire. The sand turns dark, but the foothold is established. The battle shifts from the open beaches to the rocky, fortified interior of the island. Abu Musa is a honeycomb of tunnels and bunkers, and the Iranian defenders utilize every inch of it. The advance becomes a grueling grind of close-quarters combat. American tanks rumble through the narrow roads, their turrets swinging to blast apart fortified strongpoints. Infantry squads move from rock formation to rock formation, clearing trenches with grenades and bayonets. The heat is stifling, compounded by the burning wreckage of vehicles and buildings. Every cave entrance is a potential ambush point. The Iranian soldiers fight with the desperation of men defending their own soil, utilizing rocket-propelled grenades to disable the tracks of the American armor. The fighting is intimate and brutal. There is no distance here, only the man in front of you. U.S. Marine snipers take up positions on the high ground, providing overwatch, their rifles picking off machine gun crews and officers. The call for corpsmen echoes constantly over the radio networks. The logistical machine of the U.S. military works tirelessly, helicoptering in pallets of ammunition and water to the front lines while evacuating the wounded. The sun reaches its zenith, baking the battlefield, but the tempo of operations does not slow. Slowly, methodically, the American pincers begin to close around the central command complex of the island. The resistance is fierce, but the outcome is becoming inevitable as the superior firepower and coordination of the attacking force grind down the defenses. Twilight descends, casting long shadows over the scarred landscape of Abu Musa. The firing has become sporadic, replaced by the crackle of burning structures. The remaining Iranian forces, cut off from supply and command, have been pushed into a final pocket on the northern tip of the island. Their ammunition is nearly exhausted. Their heavy weapons have been silenced. The American commander broadcasts a demand for surrender, promising humane treatment in accordance with international laws. A tense silence hangs over the battlefield, heavier than the roar of combat. Finally, a white flag is raised above the ruined parapet of the last bunker complex. Slowly, weary Iranian soldiers emerge, their hands raised, weapons left behind in the dust. One by one, they are processed by the Marines. 1,000 prisoners of war are marshaled into holding areas, their faces etched with the fatigue of the damned. The Star-Spangled Banner is hoisted over the highest point of the island, snapping in the evening breeze. The cost has been high. The beaches and the hills are littered with the debris of war. Medical helicopters ferry the last of the casualties back to the hospital ships. The mighty carrier strike group remains offshore, a silent sentinel witnessing the end of the day. The island of Abu Musa has fallen. The operation is a tactical success, a display of overwhelming military capability, yet the silence that follows is profound. It is the silence of the desert, indifferent to the ambitions of nations, reclaiming the peace that was shattered by the thunder of guns. The tension that has gripped the Strait of Hormuz for weeks finally snaps, replaced by the mechanical roar of inevitable conflict. On the flight deck of the USS Gerald Ford, the atmosphere is electric, a choreography of lethal precision performed under the harsh glare of floodlights before the sun fully claims the sky. The steam of the catapults hisses violently, mingling with the scent of jet fuel and sea salt. The shooters, clad in yellow jerseys, drop to one knee and point forward, signaling the release of absolute power. In rapid succession, the catapults fire, hurling A-18E Super Hornets and F-35C Lightning II stealth fighters from 0 to 160 knots in mere seconds. The afterburners glow with a distinct violet-orange hue, tearing through the heavy morning air as the squadrons bank sharply, forming up in attack formation. They are the vanguard, the iron birds sent to blind the enemy before the true hammer falls. Their mission is SEAD, suppression of enemy air defenses. High above the cloud layer, invisible to the naked eye, and barely a whisper on radar screens, the F-35S activate their electronic warfare suites, jamming the communication frequencies of the Iranian defense network on Abu Musa, turning their command screens into a blizzard of static. Simultaneously, the surface warfare group initiates the kinetic strike. Aboard the Arleigh Burke-class destroyers and Ticonderoga-class cruisers surrounding the carrier, the command to fire is given. The vertical launching system's VLS on the fore and aft decks burst open. With a deafening, tearing noise that sounds like the sky itself is being ripped apart, dozens of Tomahawk Block V land attack cruise missiles erupt from their cells. They hang momentarily on pillars of fire before their boosters discard and their turbofan engines ignite, sending them streaking low over the waves at subsonic speeds. They hug the curvature of the Earth, a swarm of autonomous predators hunting for the radar installations and command bunkers identified by satellite reconnaissance hours earlier. The calm waters of the Persian Gulf are scarred by the white smoke trails of American vengeance, all converging on a single point, the fortified fortified island of Abu Musa. On the island, the warning sirens wail, a haunting sound that cuts through the roar of the incoming ordnance. The Iranian defenders, entrenched in deep concrete bunkers and camouflaged firing positions, scramble to their stations. The island's air defense grid comes alive. Russian-made S-300 and indigenous Bavar 373 long-range surface-to-air missile batteries rotate their massive radars, frantically searching for the incoming threats through the electronic fog created by the American jammers. Suddenly, the horizon lights up. The Iranian interceptors launch trails of fire reaching up to meet the American missiles. The sky becomes a chaotic tapestry of smoke and explosions as interceptor missiles collide with tomahawks, creating fireballs that rain debris into the sea. However, the volume of fire is overwhelming. For every missile intercepted, 2 more break through the net. The first impacts are catastrophic. The primary search radar on the northern ridge of Abu Musa is obliterated in a flash of high explosives and shrapnel, blinding the island's long-range eyes. Concrete pillboxes overlooking the landing zones are hammered by precision-guided munitions dropped from the high-altitude Super Hornets, turning fortified positions into craters of pulverized rock and twisted rebar. The retaliation is swift and fierce. From concealed tunnels dug into the limestone cliffs, Iranian coastal defense units reveal their hidden fangs. Mobile launchers for Nor and Qatar anti-ship cruise missiles emerge from their hardened shelters, fire, and immediately retreat. The missiles skim the wave, tops at high subsonic speeds, closing the distance to the American fleet within minutes. The Aegis combat systems on the American destroyers detect the incoming vampires immediately. The combat information centers on the ships are bathed in the red glow of alert screens. Vampire, vampire, inbound, echoes over the comms. The ships maneuver aggressively, their hulls shuddering as they execute hard turns. The outer layer of defense engages. SM-6 missiles launch to intercept the threats at range. Those that leak through face the rapid-fire fury of the Phalanx close-in weapon systems. See, the Gatling guns spin with a terrifying buzzsaw sound, spewing a stream of tungsten penetrators that shred the incoming Iranian missiles mere kilometers from the hulls. The air is filled with the thunder of explosions and the screech of metal. It is a duel of titans, a test of reaction times measured in milliseconds. While the fleet defends itself, the bombardment of the island intensifies. 127mm naval guns from the destroyers begin a rhythmic pounding of the shoreline, walking explosive shells up the beach to detonate mines and clear obstacles for the impending amphibious assault. The island of Abu Musa is no longer just a piece of land. It is a burning cauldron of smoke, fire, and noise, prepared by steel to receive the boots of the infantry. The shaping of the battlefield is brutal, methodical, and unrelenting, ensuring that when the Marines arrive, they will step onto land that has been broken by the wrath of the sea. The naval bombardment shifts its focus, lifting the curtain of fire from the immediate shoreline to the deeper inland ridges, signaling the commencement of the amphibious assault. The ocean surface, previously dominated by the gray hulls of warships, is now transformed into a chaotic white canvas of churning foam. The first wave consists of the massive landing craft air cushions, the LCACs. These hovercrafts, screaming across the water on cushions of air at speeds exceeding 40 knots, resemble prehistoric beasts roaring towards their prey. Their massive gas turbine engines create a deafening wall of noise that vibrates through the very bones of the Marines waiting inside. Behind them, hundreds of amphibious assault vehicles, the AAV P-7S, plod through the swells, their tracks churning the water, low profiles barely visible amidst the spray. This is the Steel Tide, an unstoppable force of 50,000 men and machines surging towards the sandy beaches of Abu Musa. The air is thick with the smell of diesel exhaust, salt water, and the lingering acrid smoke of the preparatory fires. As the LCACs hit the transition from water to sand, their skirts deflate, settling onto the beach with a heavy shudder. The massive bow ramps drop, hitting the wet sand with a metallic clang that signals the beginning of the ground war. Immediately, the tranquility of the shoreline is shattered. The surviving Iranian defenders, emerging from their deep spider holes and reinforced bunkers that withstood the naval shelling, open up with a withering crossfire. Heavy machine gun rounds unzip the air, sparking violently off the armored ramps of the landing craft. Mortar shells begin to fall with terrifying accuracy, throwing plumes of wet sand and shrapnel into the ranks of the disembarking troops. The first Marines to sprint down the ramps rush directly into the fatal funnel. It is a scene of raw, kinetic violence. There is no cover on the open sand. Men dive for the shallow defilade of the dunes, shouting commands over the roar of battle, their movements desperate and adrenaline-fueled. The pristine white sand is quickly stained dark, and the cries of "Corpsmen up! begin to punctuate the steady staccato of automatic weapons fire. Amidst the chaos, the combat engineers move forward with grim determination. Their mission is critical. The beach is laced with anti-tank mines and razor wire obstacles designed to stall the American advance in the kill zone. Under heavy suppression fire from the AAVs that have now crawled onto the beach, the engineers deploy the mine-clearing line charges. A rocket shoots out from the launcher, dragging a long line of C4 explosives across the minefield. With a massive earth-shaking detonation, a lane is cleared, blowing the mines and wire into oblivion. The path is open. This signals the deployment of the heavy armor. From the bellies of the larger landing craft, the M1A2 Abrams main battle tanks roar to life. Their honeycombed armor shrugs off the small arms fire as they lurch forward, their tracks crushing the debris of the beach. The distinctive whine of their turbine engines adds a new layer to the cacophony. The tanks rotate their turrets, acquiring the Iranian pillboxes that are pinning down the infantry. The 120mm main guns fire, the concussive force flattening the grass for meters around, turning the enemy bunkers into smoking ruins. The momentum of the battle begins to shift. Emboldened by the armored support, the Marines rise from the sand and push forward. The fight at the water's edge becomes a series of brutal, isolated skirmishes. Squads of Marines maneuver through the smoke, using grenades and flamethrowers to clear out the trench lines that zigzag along the coast. The resistance is fanatical. The Iranian soldiers fight for every meter of ground, knowing there is no retreat. But the sheer weight of the American landing force is undeniable. Wave after wave of reinforcements pour onto the beachhead, expanding the perimeter, pushing the defensive line back towards the rocky interior of the island. The beach, now cluttered with the wreckage of war, equipment crates, and the burning hulks of disabled vehicles, has been secured. The Stars and Stripes are not yet flying, but the foothold has been carved out of blood and steel. The invasion force has successfully transitioned from the sea to the land, and the steel tide now prepares to sweep across the island, turning its gaze towards the fortified heights, where the final, desperate stand awaits. The battlefield transforms significantly as the United States Marines push away from the beachhead and into the rocky, urbanized interior of Abu Musa. The open sightlines of the coast are replaced by the claustrophobic nightmare of military operations on urban terrain. The island's strategic center is a dense clusters of concrete military barracks, command centers, and civilian-style structures converted into fortresses. Here, the technological disparity narrows. The fight becomes a visceral, close-quarters brawl where reaction time is measured in heartbeats. The air is choked with concrete dust and the black smoke of burning tires, used by the defenders to obscure thermal optics. Marines move in stacks, hugging the rough walls of buildings, their boots crunching on broken glass and spent shell casings. Every window, every doorway, and every sewer grate is a potential murder hole. The advance is slow, methodical, and agonizingly dangerous. Breaching clear becomes the rhythm of the afternoon. Explosive charges blow hinges off reinforced doors, followed by the blinding flash of stun grenades and the rush of infantry into the unknown darkness of the rooms within. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps forces, realizing they cannot match the Americans in open combat, have fully committed to an asymmetric defense. They utilize the complex network of subterranean tunnels that honeycomb the island's limestone foundation. These tunnels allow Iranian squads to move unseen beneath the boots of the American invaders, popping up from concealed spider holes to ambush rear echelons before vanishing again into the earth. The fighting underground is a descent into a primal hell. Tunnel rats, specialized Marine units armed with pistols, shotguns, and night vision goggles are sent into the pitch-black depths. In these cramped, suffocating corridors, the noise of a gunshot is deafening, magnifying the psychological terror. Booby traps and tripwires are everywhere. Sudden, violent firefights erupt at point-blank range in the dark, illuminated only by the strobing muzzle flashes. It is a war of nerves, where death waits around every blind corner. Above ground, the armored columns face their own gauntlet. The M1A2 Abrams tanks, so dominant in the desert, find themselves vulnerable in the narrow streets. The crews must operate buttoned up, relying on their sensors while infantry squads sweep the flanks. From the rooftops and upper stories, Iranian hunter-killer teams launch RPG, two 9 Vampire anti-tank rockets, aiming for the thinner top armor of the vehicles The streets thunder with explosions as the tank's active protection systems and reactive armor detonate to stop the incoming projectiles. One, Abrams takes a direct hit to its track, slewing sideways and blocking the road, forcing the column to halt under a hail of sniper fire. The tank's coaxial machine gun answers, sawing through the concrete facade of a building, bringing the entire structure crashing down on the attackers. The noise is constant, a relentless cacophony of crumbling masonry, shouting men, and the heavy thumping of 50 caliber machine guns. Casualties mount rapidly on both sides. The streets are slick with oil and blood. Makeshift casualty collection points are established in cleared buildings where Navy corpsmen work frantically to stabilize the wounded amidst the grime and heat. There is no front line here. The enemy is all around, above, and below. The resistance is fanatical. Iranian defenders, cut off from their command, fight with the fatalistic courage of men who have accepted their end, refusing to surrender key intersections until they are physically removed by high explosives or flamethrowers. The sun begins to dip lower, casting long, eerie shadows across the ruined town, but the fighting shows no sign of abating. The American war machine continues to grind forward, room by room, tunnel by tunnel, paying a heavy price in blood for every yard of ground gained in this concrete grinder. The island of Abu Musa has become a furnace, consuming men and material in a relentless test of will. As the sun begins to bleed into the western horizon, casting a bruised purple hue over the Persian Gulf, the kinetic fury of the battle for Abu Musa finally reaches its exhaustion point. The island, once a lush strategic outpost, now resembles the surface of a distant, hostile planet. The relentless thumping of artillery and the sharp crack of rifle fire slowly recede, replaced by the crackling of unchecked fires consuming the remnants of the barracks and fuel depots. The Iranian Defense Force, having fought with ferocious tenacity, has been compressed into a final, indefensible pocket on the northern tip of the island, cut off from all resupply, with their communication grid shattered and their heavy weaponry reduced to twisted scrap metal. The tactical situation has become hopeless. The American cordon is absolute. M1, A2 Abrams tanks sit hull down on the ridges, their barrels trained on the last Iranian strongpoint, while thousands of Marines tighten the noose, waiting for the final command to overrun the position. However, the final slaughter does not come. Inside the ruined command bunker, the senior surviving Iranian officer makes the heavy decision to preserve the lives of his remaining men. A flare shoots up into the twilight sky, not red for contact, but white. It hangs there, stark and illuminating, signaling the capitulation. Slowly, hesitantly, the firing stops completely. The silence that follows is sudden and physically jarring, ringing in the ears of men who have been deafened by hours of continuous combat. From the smoke-filled entrance of the bunker complex, a lone figure emerges, waving a white cloth. He is followed by others. Hands raised, weapons discarded in piles, the defenders of Abu Musa step out into the open. They are haggard, covered in dust and blood, their eyes hollow with the 1,000-yard stare common to all soldiers who have looked death in the face. The processing of the prisoners of war begins immediately. United States Marines, wary but professional, move in to secure the surrender. Zip ties replace rifles. Water is distributed to the parched captives. In total, 1,000 Iranian soldiers are marshaled into holding areas hastily constructed on the southern airfield. It is a staggering sight. A sea of defeated uniforms sitting in rows on the tarmac, guarded by the very men who were trying to kill them just an hour ago. Navy corpsmen move among the prisoners, treating injuries without distinction of nationality, adhering to the code of the sea and the laws of war. The human cost is laid bare for all to see. Medevac helicopters, the CH-53 Sea Stallions, roar in and out of the landing zones, their rotors kicking up dust as they ferry the critically wounded of both sides to the hospital ships waiting offshore. On the highest peak of the island, overlooking the smoking ruins and the vast armada of the United States Navy filling the ocean to the horizon, a squad of Marines raises the American flag. The Star-Spangled Banner catches the evening wind, snapping briskly above the conquered territory. It is the definitive symbol of victory. The culmination of the massive operation involving 50,000 troops and billions of dollars in military hardware. Yet, the mood is not one of jubilation, but of solemn relief. The adrenaline fades, leaving behind the heavy exhaustion of survival. As night fully descends, the island of Abu Musa falls silent. The great warships in the distance turn on their navigation lights, standing as silent sentinels in the dark. The battle is over. The geopolitical map has changed, written in iron and blood, but for the soldiers on the ground, the politics matter less than the simple fact that they are alive to see another day. The desert wind blows across the island, indifferent to the victory or the defeat, reclaiming the silence that belongs to the ages.